What's that on either? Are they really? They're what? Oh, electrical. Yeah. Should I turn them off?
Hi, Al. How's it going?
Believe it or not, somehow my agenda disappeared when I went in to get the Zoom link. I'm looking on my computer now, and it says, "Please see tonight's memo attached," but I can't. I'm trying to get it, but I can't get it again. I don't know why. Just send it again if you would.
Yeah.
Crazy computers.
No worries. That should have just sent, so let me know if you get that. If not, I can try and send it through. I just forwarded it in the same email chain, so hopefully it should
Got it.
ship.
Yep.
You got it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh.
Okay, we got a couple more people we're waiting for.
Yeah, however you want to set it up. So Martin's having a little bit of issues with Zoom, so he's going to try and relog in, so he should be here soon. And I think we're just waiting on him.
Martin?
Yeah, Martin and Roman, I think, are the only two we're waiting on.
Yes. Have you heard from them at all?
Martin said that he was going to try and relog in. He was having some difficulty with Zoom. I haven't heard from Roman, though.
Yeah, Roman's trying to get in also, Zach. I just called him.
Thank you for doing that.
Hello, Martin here.
Hey, Zach, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
The link for the presenters for 869 Madison are having problems. I just got a call. So if you could resend to them. I don't know if they're first. I don't have my agenda up right this very second.
Yeah, they're second on the agenda. I'll just send a reminder link. Usually what we do for applicants is we just have them use the general link that members of the public use, and then we can just elevate and de-elevate, for lack of a better term, when it's their turn. But thank you for letting me know about that.
Zach, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Martin.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, we could go through preliminaries while Roman's trying to get on if you think we're ready to go.
I'm just going to send out the link to the applicant for 869 Madison Avenue, just so that that's resolved before we get started. If that's okay with you, it shouldn't take, it'll probably be done in about a minute, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hi, Roman. Okay, we have everybody. It's just a matter of setting up this last link.
Looks like I'm feeling kind of blue tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all set, so that should be good. So I think we're ready to start whenever Word is ready to start.
Okay. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Albany City Planning Board. And we welcome those who are at 220 Henry Johnson Boulevard and those of you who are joining us through Zoom link. All of our board members are present, which includes Glenisa Gayard, Roman Kuchera, Martin Hull, and Chris Ellis. Also assisting us tonight, our senior planner, Zach Powell, who will be presenting, and other planning staff members who are in the room. For those of you who are on Zoom, when you are interested in speaking, if you want to speak on any of the issues, I urge you to inform Zach now, as we will not take any people wanting to speak once the meeting starts. And those who are in the room at 222 Henry Johnson Boulevard, make sure that you sign up as you came in if there are items that you would like to speak to. Our rules of procedure are that the presentation will be by each applicant. If it is a project that we have seen before, the applicant has 6 minutes to present it. If it's a new presentation, the applicant has 10 minutes to present. The planning board members then can ask questions. We will then take public comments. Comments by the public are limited to 3 minutes. Comments, though, by common council members, since they represent a larger area and neighborhoods, are allowed 6 minutes. The planning staff will then make its recommendations. And then if there's any clarification or misinformation that's needed, the applicant has an opportunity in a couple of minutes to make any rebuttals. I would also remind the public to keep your comments concise. And if there are comments that someone else has made that you're agreeing with, you can indicate you're agreeable to it. That gives you an opportunity to expand perhaps on other ideas or comments that you have that the other person hasn't spoken about. And Zach will tell the Zoom participants how the timing will work. So Zach, if you were to mention that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Members of the who are attending via Zoom, please just send a message to me if you'd like to sign up to speak on any of the applications now. If you are attending via telephone, when it comes to the point where we are doing public comment, you can raise your hand by pressing *6, and I will come to you, and then I will ask for your name and your address, because this is required by the city's common council. Once it's your time, I'll have a speaker on the screen, and I'll provide updates when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is expired. If you have any questions or any difficulties, feel free to send a message in the chat, and I will try to get to it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our first item on the agenda, and that item is 7 Wilbur Street. The applicant is 7 Wilbur Limited Liability Corporation. The presenter of the applicant is Gerard Marzocchi, and it's being represented by Donata Rea. This is a request for a conditional use permit to convert a 2-family townhouse into a 3-family townhouse in an RT, which is a townhouse district. And this is a public hearing, and it is the one item on the agenda. I believe that is a public hearing. No, I think we have 2. I'm sorry. So, is the applicant available?
Yep, so the applicant's actually in person right now. So if you want, you can sit at either one of these tables, doesn't matter which. We'll just have one be a speaker's table and one be a presenter's table. So you can just sit at whichever table you prefer. And then what we'll do is I'll be operating the PowerPoint. And for anyone attending via Zoom, I'll be operating the PowerPoint. So whenever you go to the next slide, just let me know and I can progress or go back through the slides. I'll be setting a timer for 10 minutes. And I'll let you know once that time is expired. If you still have more to present, the planning board may extend that time if they feel like they need to know more about the case. Before asking any further questions or taking any action on the case. And feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donata Rea, and I am the representative.
We just lost the sound, or I did anyway.
Yeah, so did I.
I did too. Hey, Zach, it looks like the Zoom is muted.
I think I muted it on my end. We'll try that again, and I'll reset the time, but hopefully this should resolve it. So feel free to start over again.
Okay, good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donata Rea, and to my right is Gerard Marzocchi. He is the owner of 7 Wilbur Street LLC. We are here tonight to ask for a compliance or conditional use permit for a 2-family to make a ground floor sub-level. I guess it could be considered the basement, but it's not really, there is windows and doors to another living space. That is our purpose here tonight, and that is our request. This is the home, 7 Wilbur Street. The front entrance, as you can see, there's a front door with steps up. which is a two-family. It's 6/6 to be exact. As you can see on the lower level, there is a door and a window, and that is the area that we are looking to convert to another living space. Right. There is another door, and I'm waiting for the picture, because there is a picture.
Sorry about that.
Okay, to the right, this is another door that is underneath the stairs, which is another exit or entrance. Well, it would be considered an exit. It's on the other side of the living space, which it's not going to be the living space. It would just be an option for an emergency exit, let's say. But that is another door, where that door would lead into a hallway, which has our utility panels, our gas, the hot water tanks will be in this corridor, basically. So this is the floor plan, as you see. So on the top right, where Zach is right now, right? There's the door, that would be the entry coming in. And to the left, that was the window, and that's the window that you saw in the front. And for the left is the other door. Okay. So let's go back into the living space, and you'll see that it would be considered the entry living area, the living room. And there's dimensions are there. I don't have them with me. I can't see, but they're written. It's quite a big space. Now, these walls are there now. These are not walls that we are looking to put up. So just what you should know, that these walls, the only wall that will be needed to be put up will be in the, if you go through the door, Zach, go to the, the second doorway inside to the right. Right. That doorway would lead it into a kitchen. Okay, that would be the kitchen area. That wall to the left is a wall we're going to be putting up. That is not there now. If you go to the left, right there, and go down, that wall right there, that wall does not exist at the moment.
That wall exists already, actually. It's the one to the left that's blocking it off from the other corridor. And what I've noticed is that that's not included is, because I understand that with 3 families, there's also an additional exit on the backside that's not included in that floor plan right there. It's already a pre-existing emergency exit that leads to the back.
Can you just use your mic and just make sure you have your mask over your nose completely?
Yes, sorry about that, guys. So, yes, right there where the mouse key is, there's actually an existing exit entrance as well to the backside area that's not included in the floor plan. I don't know why, but it's already pre-existing as an emergency exit to lead to the backside of the property. Now, if you were to go back to the left where you were saying that wall does not exist, that already exists with a doorway going vertical now up. That's the only wall that does not partition the room. It's an open floor plan that we would use to partition to separate both corridors.
Yeah, that's what I said. Next picture. Okay, so this is a manual. Do I have to explain it? Would you have any questions on it? Anyone?
Just for the board, these are the existing units on the first and second floor, and these are just used for conversion applications, just to confirm that all units within the structure occupy at least 80% of the floor plate, which in this case they do. In my further slides, I'll go over that and provide the percentages, but I think they're in the mid 80s to low 90% of the entire floor plate.
Thank you, Zach.
And I think these are my slides. Did you have anything else that you'd like to present?
think there was some other slides, did you, unless you felt that was not necessary. I think I had a handwritten, but, you know, if you felt it wasn't necessary, then.
I didn't see them, but if you want to, verbally.
Did you need any pictures of the inside or any of that? That was in the application, correct?
Yeah, that was in the application. So that's been uploaded to the city website, and that's been provided to the board members prior to this meeting. So they've been able to look at that.
Okay, well, I'm open to questions then, if any.
Are there questions by the board? I have one. When the very first picture, I believe, that was shown, it seems like the house had there. Yes, that one. Thank you. Looks like the house is a fairly isolated, standalone house. Can anybody talk about the property on the right and the property on the left? Is that part of the property that's we're looking at tonight, or is it different properties, and
No,
what's there?
Those are neighbors that live on the block. I do know that the home has 2.5 feet in the front that is not, it's not all, we just don't know which 2.5 feet we have. But basically, to the left and to the right are owned by neighbors on the block, and they have a basic organic farm. They raise chickens. It's basically farm-like area, and the neighbors get together and they grow and they pick and they cultivate, and they truly are in a unique block, a unique family on this block that love and culture.
Okay, thank you.
This property.
Other questions?
Yeah, just Zach, because I missed a workshop. Does it meet the square footage requirements?
Yeah, I have those review standards in the next slide, so I can go over those one by one. I did go to the site today just to confirm. We had some questions just based on the height of the unit. So I just went over today just again to measure the height of the unit from the exterior of the building, and it is 7 feet tall. So that is an update from the memo that you all received on Thursday, but I'll go over that change in the next few slides. We did get a question from a member of the public just about windows for the unit. There is one window in the front of the unit. Are there any plans for windows in the rear portion of the
I
unit?
don't think there is possible, do we? Can we? If it's possible, we will. If there's a possibility, we will.
If I may speak, right now, the way the house sits, there is, as I mentioned in the.
You might just need to move closer to your mic.
Oh, yes. As I mentioned earlier, there is an already existing window and door in the rear side of the building that just can't be seen because it's being blockaded by a porch in the backyard, which we will eliminate and have to reconfigure that porch. But it's already pre-existing as far as windows and doors in the front and the rear of the property. There's 2 front doors and a back door along with windows.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak, Zach?
Yep, we had 2 people sign up. I'm just gonna, I think both are here in person.
And while the people are you're getting ready for them to speak, I would remind the speakers, because I read the letters that came in, that the tenure of the property is not the purview of the planning board. So you may not speak on whether there are renters or homeowners there. That's something that we do not have power over. And if you do speak along those lines, then we will have to cut you off. But you're more than welcome to speak on the actual use of the building, the land use, and the dimensions, the design, whatever.
Great, thanks, Al. So the first speaker on the list is Betsy Mercogliano. Yeah, one or both of you can just vacate the tables just so that the speakers have a spot. Thank you. And then Ms. Mercogliano, we're just gonna have the timer here, and feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay.
My
My name,
brother, Christopher Gregory Ellis Jr., born and raised in Youngstown.
Yep, Chris, you had a question?
No, that was an open window that just blasted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
my name is Betsy Mercogliano, and I live at number 3 Wilbur, and the garden that Donna was talking about is ours. And I'm here mostly because I had no idea what the plans were. I came to the meeting last week, misunderstanding that I would be able to find out. And I'm happy that the building is being given some love because it needed it. I'm not aware of the rear exit. If there is one under the porch, it's news to me. And the only thing in looking at these plans that I don't understand is how does someone access the second hallway, the hallway that they're putting in? Because I would think there has to be a second egress. And Zach, you were saying you were gonna post the numbers of how big the rooms are, because that's the other thing. I know from living next door for 40 years, I know this basement is small. And I'm not aware of it being deep enough back into the back of the building to be able to walk continually all the way back. But again, I came because I wanted to see the plans. I wanted to understand what's going on. Are you going to present those statistics or whatever the heck you said you were talking about? Or is that after the public comment?
Yeah, so that's after the public comment. So if you have anything else you'd like to say now, the board will kind of take into consideration the public comments and they'll follow up on any points they'd like to. And I'm still going to go through my slides, and those go through the standards that an applicant must apply with when they're applying for a conversion to add a unit within an existing townhouse.
Yeah, my interest is in just making sure that it's a livable space downstairs and that there's safety in terms of being able to leave, because I didn't see how the wall that's being put up to make a hallway doesn't look like you can get in there. So how can that be an egress? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Yep, and then the next and last speaker is Ellen Becker.
Hi, my name is, I don't know if I'm being recorded. My name is Ellen Becker. I live at 21 Wilbur, and we own the lot number 9 right next to the building. And I did want to correct one thing. The lot is 24 feet wide, and the house is 24 feet wide. I have a copy of the tax map that shows that, so there's no footage on either side. The reason, but if you look at the tax map, the front boundary is 26 because it's at an angle. The street goes down at an angle, so you have kind of like a triangle in front of the house. And I am concerned that if there is the possibility of a unit down there, which seems, I've lived there for over 30 years and I've been in that basement, and it's got a dirt floor and it was really small when I was in there. So I'm just not aware of the possibility of it being a unit. And I can leave copies of the tax map here so that can be seen. And just, I'm just worried that if it is approved, that it be possible of doing it right. So, and I'm not aware that the space down there goes all the way to the back. I think it runs into the dirt, as does the house I'm living at 21. Our house is a 3-floor, and it dead ends into the dirt because the incline of the property goes up sharply on the bottom level floor. So I'm just concerned that whether it's actually possible to do a unit that's going to be capable of meeting the requirements. So, and I am going to leave copies of the tax map, I guess, at the front here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Zach, you want to present the findings that you have?
Yep, just give me 1 sec. I'm just going to switch back over to the PowerPoint so that you all and other members on Zoom can see that. Bear with me just 1 second. One of the questions I think someone had was how someone could access the hallway or kind of unfinished space. The applicant just referenced this. This is an existing doorway that's under the staircase up to the first floor unit. So that's how that access currently operates right now. So these are the conversion standards that must apply when someone is looking to add a unit within an existing townhouse. The first requirement is that the building must have at least 3 stories. So there are the existing units in the 2 stories above grade, and there's a basement that qualifies as a 3rd story. The unit is only 2 inches below grade, excuse me. So that qualifies as a basement, and basements qualify as a story under the USDO. The second is that no exterior changes to the structure are visible from a public right-of-way. The applicant's not looking to modify the front or the sides of the structure. New and existing units must have at least 1,000 square feet per unit, or each occupy at least 80% of a single floor plate. So the proposed unit occupies 84% of the floor plate. The first floor unit occupies 88% of the floor plate, and the second floor unit occupies 93% of the floor plate. And then the last is that the lowest story must be 50% above grade. The height of the unit is 86 inches and 84 inches are above grade, so that's 97%. Are there any questions before I move into the conditional use permit standards?
Zach, how do you measure how much of the, or where, I guess, do you measure how much of the unit is above grade? You know, in a case like this where the land slopes out in front. Is it?
Yeah, so grade is determined based on the front of the structure. So, you know, there is a change of slope along the sidewalk, but it is flat, you know, where the entrance to this proposed unit would be. So that's where the 2 inches came from. When I was at the site and measuring, you know, the change from the sidewalk as well, the difference in grade was, I believe, 34 inches. So again, that's still less than 50%. So the unit complies, you know, regardless of whether you're measuring, you know, grade at the door of the proposed unit or from the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, it was brought up that the building is 26 feet in width, and the tax map shows that the lot is 26 feet. But am I not correct in assuming that tax maps are not always accurate as it relates to the actual size of the property? And I'm assuming that in this case, the applicants will be getting a survey done.
Yeah, the applicants could get a survey done. I'm just gonna shift over to Map Geo just so that I can show what the resident at 9 Wilbur Street, Miss Becker, was speaking to. So give me just 1 second. I'm just gonna transition to that just so I can show you what she was referring to. Okay, so as you can see, normally with a lot of structures in townhouse districts, the front lot line is at the front wall plane of the building or the front facade. In this instance, since there is a change in slope, there is a little bit of that portion where there's a retaining wall, and apologies for the rendering not working well. I'm going to try and shift to a better image. So in this kind of triangular portion, sorry, also let me turn on the annotation feature so you can see where my mouse is going. In this triangular portion, there is a retaining wall. So that portion is, within the property boundaries of 7 Wilbur Street. When you go to Map Geo to look at the tax boundaries, the frontage width is 24 feet. So that is the width of the property, at the front. Sometimes that can change towards the back, but it's pretty consistent in this case. And the depth of the property is 109 feet.
And from that aerial view, it looks like there's a lot of green space next to the building.
Yes, as the applicant mentioned, Ms. Mercogliano has, a garden and some more agriculturally based space to the east of the site on 5 Wilbur Street. So that's what is being used there. There is a fence. It is fenced off with a chain link fence within the area.
But I'm getting confused now. What I heard was that the building has no side yard. This aerial view shows that there's a side yard, unless there's something blocking the building there, the green stuff. It seems to me that there is a side yard and that the building is not as wide as the boundaries of the property.
I think it's just the aerial imagery is making it a little difficult to just see that. I think some of the existing trees are obstructing.
Okay, well, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Did the board have any other questions for me before the applicant provided a rebuttal?
No.
Nope.
Okay. So you'll get 5 minutes to provide a rebuttal, and I'll just set the timer for that now. And feel free to start when you're ready.
Well, it's not quite a rebuttal, but just in addition, I did speak with Albany City Clerk, Building and Codes. They assured me that the property is 626 by 26.5 in the front, 127 inch on one side, 115 feet on the other side, and the building is 24 feet wide. So we will get a survey. That is something that we have talked about, but our priorities are just getting the building that we have in order, cleaned up, and we will do the survey eventually. It's not a priority for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Zach? Any other parts of your presentation that you want to go through?
I can go through the conditional use permit standards quickly. I'm just going to switch again from Map Geo. It looks like the other representative for the applicant has a little more they wanted to speak on. If that's okay with the board, the applicant still had, I think, 4 minutes remaining with their time.
Hi, I understand that there was not a picture to refer to the third door that's under the porch. I understand that one of the neighbors has a concern with. I thought that was going to be included. Unfortunately, it isn't, along with the windows. We could always submit that at a later date. Is even tonight, tomorrow, email that to the board or to Zach, so that could be further investigated. Like the neighbor initially said, it was a 24-inch building, so. and as-
24-foot.
24-foot building. And as Donna stated, that it wasn't a priority. No, it is a priority of ours to have a reevaluation or a survey done on the property as soon as possible. We've actually been investigating or going through a series of which surveyors. People are just very busy in Albany. You know, it's very hard to kind of find people during the pandemic or whatnot. But that is something that's on our top priority. So I just want to make that very clear to the board as well, because it is very hard not to have an egress on the side. But as of right now, the building is, as it stands, without any modifications and whatnot, there is 3 entranceways and exits, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, along with windows in the front and the back, just so that we're clear on record.
I'd like to ask the applicant during this rebuttal period if I think that you should endeavor to add windows where it's allowed. I don't know if it's probably not allowed on the sides because of fire regulations, the possibility that there might be another building built there in the far future. But at least in the back, it seems like even if that rear door is changed into a window that can be it's large enough that it would qualify as another secondary egress. But I think that there should be more than just one window in the entire apartment.
We would agree to that.
We would agree to that. And there currently are. There's a couple in the front and 1 in the back existing, pre-existing as now, but we would definitely add more with the renovation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Zach.
So I'll move through these quickly, and just to kind of add on to this, the conversion of the unit will still need to go through the building department, where they will confirm that it meets the International Building Code, in terms for the unit height, based on some of the comments mentioned by the neighbors, and in terms of light and air, to make sure that it complies with that. So that the application will be meeting those requirements as it goes through the building department. There are 7 review criteria for a conditional use permit. The first is the consistency with USDO, which this complies with. The second is that the project would not result in a random pattern of development. This is reutilizing an existing structure, and there are other 3 family townhouses and 1 family and 2 family houses on that street in the immediate neighborhood. So this is not a random pattern of development. The third is that it would not create a negative fiscal or environmental impact on adjacent properties. This is classified as a type 2 action under seeker, and it's surrounded by similar uses. So this is not going to create any negative impacts on the neighborhood, since it is a similar use and a low impact. The fourth is that it's consistent with the purposes and objectives of the RT zoning district in the neighborhood. The purpose of the RT district is to provide for neighborhoods with a blend of townhouse style residences of varying styles and configurations. This is a 3-family townhouse configuration that aligns with that purpose of the district. And it also meets the conversion standards for converting a 2-family townhouse to a 3-family townhouse. The fifth is that it would not result in harmful cumulative effects or impacts of aggregate similar conditional uses. The closest conditional use was extremely far away. And again, since there are existing townhouse dwellings, this is not going to create any negative impacts by adding a unit to an existing structure. Sixth is whether it create an excessive burden on public improvements, facilities, services, or utilities. This building is already connected to utilities, and it's already in a neighborhood that's supported by a number of public improvements, facilities, and services. So this is not going to create a burden by adding a residential unit. And the final is that it would provide a necessary and desirable service that's in the interest and convenience of the neighborhood. It's providing a housing unit, and it's improving a contributing historic structure within a historic district. And it creates an additional housing unit that's within walking distance to a number of major employers and community amenities.
Okay, any other comments by the board? The recommendation of the staff is an approval of this project. Do I have a motion to approve? Please unmute yourself.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Glenisa Gayard. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Roman Kuchera. Further discussion? Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. I believe it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
And Al, just before progressing on to the next case, one thing that I forgot to bring up at the beginning of the meeting, we do have an item for Erie Boulevard for a seeker lead agency declaration.
Right.
Recommend that just move as a consent agenda item, if that's the opinion or the desire of the board.
I believe that we can do that. We have seen the Erie Boulevard project on a number of occasions, and tonight is only to go ahead and declare us as lead agency. And on your agenda, it's actually the third item. So I would entertain a motion, let this go onto the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of having the planning board be declared as a lead agency, please say aye.
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 Okay, approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna switch back. Give me just one sec.
Okay, we're going to the next project, which is also a conditional use. And this is the property at 869 Madison Avenue, with the applicant being the Madison Pub LLC, and in a mixed use neighborhood edged area. The request is to occupy about 2,000 square feet of the ground floor as a bar or tavern.
Good evening, this is Martha Mahoney from Corp Counsel's office. I just wanted to open the opportunity for Glenessa to speak, or if you want to speak at the end of the presentation, I defer to you.
No, I can speak now before we move forward, because I think it's important that I get consensus from the board regarding this issue. So I had a conversation with Martha today as one of the applicants reached out to me personally requesting what the board's thoughts were on this project. You know, I did state that we did talk about it during our regular meeting, and that they should go back and review that, because we were very clear as to what our thoughts were on the project and what our concerns were. At the time that they reached out, I did not know they were an applicant, but then they eventually did let me know, in which it threw some red flags for me. So on the basis of transparency, I wanted to make sure that everything that I did was on the up and up. I was assured by counsel that it was, but I also wanted to let the boards know, as far as transparency is concerned, that this did occur.
Okay, yes, thank you. That's important, that if any discussion occur informally, it needs to be disclosed, and certainly thank you, Glenisa. That's exactly what is needed to be done. Excellent, thank you.
Are there
Okay.
Are there any other board members that have recusal potential or a similar experience that they wanted to address, just to make sure that we're doing that at the start?
Yeah, I'll ditto Glenissa on this, but there was no conversation with the applicant. Too busy today, trustee meeting, so did receive a call.
Okay. Is there an applicant now ready to speak on 869 Madison?
There is. Hello,
Okay.
sir. All right. My name is Osceola Boutel, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the applicant for 869 Madison Avenue, Madison LLC. And this is for a MUNC mixed-use neighborhood center conditional use permit review. And the building in question is 2,000 square feet on the ground floor, and it's a bar or tavern at 869 Madison Avenue. So as I said, here's the location, 869 Madison Avenue. It's been a staple of the community for decades as a tavern and a pub. And here we have a picture with the surrounding buildings. You can go to the next slide. Another picture showing other buildings that are adjacent to it. And shows the street and the traffic in front. All right, you can continue. There's a floor plan here, floor plans. So the applicant is not planning to do any construction work at all. It's a fairly turnkey operation, so there won't be any building or anything of that nature. I know, buddy, I know. Here, can you take? So everything will be the same. The bar will be the same. And sorry about that. I'm watching my son. So the bar will be the same as before. There's not going to be a major build out or anything required for the kitchen or anything like that. You can go to the next slide. So this just shows the space and the lounge and the intended use that we'll have. Everything will be the same as before. With the dumpster and everything in the same place, and the driveway alongside where we make deliveries. I have a picture of that as well. You can continue. All right, and basement again, there's not going to be any people in the basement. We'll just use that for storage and whatnot. All right, and then we have plan of the roof from the site. Again, no changes will be made, completely turnkey. All right. So information proposed use. So we'll have the hours will be from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Monday through Sunday. And then you'll have a staff maximum of 5 employees during the shift, including security. And closest similar conditional use to this is Casey Finn's on Yates, as well as Junior's on Madison. And we're in the process of securing all necessary licensing, cabaret license permits, health codes, as well as the liquor license. The process has already been started. All right, and anticipated information on proposal. Okay, so there will be standard related restaurant odors, nothing out of the ordinary. No elevated or increased noise too much beyond what the other establishments produce. We do plan to increase the external lighting to create a safer environment for our patrons. And that'll be all around the vicinity of the building, in the back, the side, and as well as in the front. And we have licensed professional security lined up already that we've deliberately chosen to pay a premium for, because we don't want to have inexperienced security. We want well-trained folks that know how to handle the crowds and how to keep people safe, both inside and outside the establishment. And as far as deliveries, there will be weekly food deliveries. There's a large driveway alongside or adjacent to the building, and that's where the pickups and drop-offs will be. So it won't disrupt traffic in front of Madison, because that is a very, very busy street, and we don't want to cause any problems there. All right. So the applicant is a local teacher, educator. He's a champion for local businesses as well as the people of Albany. He loves his community, and he's chosen to invest in this area to contribute to the tax base to the community, giving him so much. He's a very hard worker, very detail oriented, and he loves this city. And while this would be his first experience running a bar, he does have extensive professional experience that he would draw from, as well as supplementing his experience with mentors, a well-qualified manager to oversee the day-to-day operations, experienced security, and he's planning to hire people with a minimum of 2 years experience in the industry, both to be in front and back of the house. to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And he also has a lot of mentors such as myself and BMT Hospitality, who's the landlord, will help guide him through the process and has already been very instrumental in this endeavor. So the food will be light fare, wings, pizza, burgers, things like that. Nothing too fancy. There's not going to be a need for a big commercial kitchen or a hood or anything like that. It'll be very similar to the setup that I have in my two establishments with, just flat top grills, microwaves and ovens that are all small counter appliances. So there won't be any major build out necessary there. Here's a picture of the driveway that shows where the deliveries would take place in order to minimize the traffic disturbance. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Is this property currently occupied?
No, it's been vacant for, I believe, just under 4 years. But prior to that, it was a bar tavern for decades, and that's about a staple of the community. So getting some business up in there will be very beneficial to the surrounding community, I think.
And you're going to have cabaret. Seems to be a relatively small area. How is that going to work?
Just jukebox was the plan, but I think even to have a jukebox, just to cover our bases, we're thinking a cabaret license.
But there's no requirement to have cabaret for a jukebox, I'm assuming.
So no cabaret then.
Okay. Board members, any questions? No other questions? Okay. Are there speakers, Zach?
Yep, we have one person that signed up to speak. We did have someone on Zoom who requested to speak but did not provide their name and their address within Albany. So we're not going to be taking comment because the Common Council requires that we have a name and a street address in order to receive comments. So the first speaker is Leah Goldie. I'm going to promote her to be a panelist, so bear with me just one sec. And I'm also just gonna switch the view just so that Leah is able to see the timer. So bear with me as I just change that over. Okay. And Leah, are you there? I think you're just muted.
Oh, I'm muted. Okay. Hi.
No, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Yes, hi. So I'm Leah Golby. Do you need my address? No, I'm not going to give you that. Whatever. It's 550 Myrtle.
We have the
550. Yeah, I'm representing the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I live in Pine Hills. The Pine Hills Neighborhood Association supports this application. We have, a pretty rigorous process where we meet with the applicant. So we have our Zoning and Code Enforcement Committee. I'm co-chair of that committee. The committee met with the applicant. We asked him a bunch of questions. He gave us good answers. And the committee unanimously supported the application as long as the management has sufficient experience. There's a security guard from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. That there is a plan followed for IDing patrons, and that the management and owner work with the Committee on University and Community Relations to follow their best practices for bars, as well as be available to respond to the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association if any issues or concerns arise. And I just want to note that there was a typo in our letter that is my fault. it is the Committee on University and Community Relations, not the Community on University and Community Relations. So my apologies for that. We then took the Zoning and Code Enforcement Committee then passed along our recommendation to the full board. There was unanimous support of everyone who voted. There was one member who just didn't weigh in. That board member hasn't been weighing in on votes lately, so I don't think it was necessarily particular to this case. But everybody else supported it. So that was 13 yeses in support of the applicants. This building has not been in use for a few years, and we think it's really important to get it back into productive use as long as it is done responsibly. There have been times in the past where that block in particular has been a problem, but that's because there were multiple bars on the block at that time. There are now no bars on that block. One of the board members actually lives on that physical block at the corner of Partridge and Hamilton, so around the corner from there. And she also supported this, and had no issues with it other than she wants to make sure that cigarette butts are not left on the sidewalk.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other speakers?
Yep. So the speaker that I mentioned, they did provide their name, so I'm just going to elevate Mr. Grimaldi. So bear with me just 1 second. Mr. Grimaldi, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
All right, so just for starting question is, why was this establishment closed in the first place is a concern of mine. Another concern is COVID restrictions and whatnot, how they can, manage to safely, I guess, enforce social distancing, mask wearing, if there's a vaccine mandate, maximum capacity, they mentioned it's 2,000 square feet. I don't know how many people you can safely fit in there, but safety basically in the neighborhood. It was mentioned before by whoever that previous speaker was, representing Pine Hills Association, I believe, saying that, there was issues in the block in the past when there was more bars. If they could maybe speak a little bit more about what these safety issues were. I'm pretty local to this establishment, and I just want to make sure that, I'm a concerned citizen. I just want to make sure it's a safe thing going on here if they decide to grant it. And mostly in the sense of just the neighborhood itself and the type of, actions that occur in the bar, outside of it, nearby and whatnot. I think it shed some light, whoever's representing it, on why it was closed in the first place. It is something that is of concern to myself. I'd like to, and maybe have that shared with the council, whoever's making the decision on reopening and whatnot. I think that might be a good thing for them to share with everybody. Why exactly was it closed? Was it, I believe I know the reason. I don't really want to go into detail, but that's my question. I don't need to speak much more beyond, I know it's a 3-minute cap, but I just want to know why it was closed in the first place and what's different now than, it was closed before COVID. It wasn't a COVID related closure. It was something else. So if they could maybe shed some light on that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Anybody else to speak, Zach?
No other speakers.
Okay.
As far as why the original establishment closed, I don't know the specifics beyond just a business decision, BMT downsizing, I believe. That's the extent of my knowledge on the issue.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as safety and coronavirus concerns and things like that, the applicant will absolutely be compliant with whatever recommendations the New York State Public Health Department sets forth and Albany County Public Health sets forth. As far as public safety, I'll reiterate, we have top-notch security that we're paying for. That's 2-3 times what the next guy will cost, because we put a premium on that, and that's not something that we want to skimp out on. We want to make sure that we have high quality staff, high quality security, very experienced, that can maintain crowd control both inside and outside the bar. Someone spoke about IDing. The plan for IDing, of course, is IDing at the front, at the door, at the counter when the drink is purchased, and random checks inside, as well as using scanners to check IDs. And what other question was there? Was that everything? I think that was everything. Oh, another thing I want to say is marketing. A sound marketing strategy is also part of what will go into, goes into making a safe, fun, enjoyable place for everyone. We'll market to a wide range of demographics, but have specific attention paid to young professionals, as well as elderly folks in the neighborhood coming in, in the afternoons, as well as students who are responsible. So we'll be focusing our marketing strategies on demographics that are folks that just want to have a good time in a safe environment, and a lot of attention will be paid to that. It just won't be an afterthought.
Okay. You had mentioned that you operate 2 restaurants. Which ones are they?
Ground Up Cafe and Lounge in Pine Hills, as well as Chipmunk Coffee in Rotterdam, the Viaport Rotterdam Mall, Schenectady.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question probably to Martha or Zach or both. The Pine Hills presentation and in their letter listed some conditions that they would like to see implemented. Are these on our agenda? Would we be able to put them as conditions, or are these more left up to enforcement and the liquor authority?
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just pulling up the letter just so that everyone attending as well on Zoom and in person just can see this. And I'm just gonna switch just so that that's shared on screen.
I think these, in my opinion, these are very reasonable requests. I just wanted to see if the planning board has any purview over them. And as a, I don't know, in the case of this, what are our limits in terms of the working on conditional uses?
Yeah, just looking at the language, and Martha, feel free to correct or add on this. Some of this is a little, I think some of this is not as definitive, and I think maybe construed as a little vague. I think, when you're reading this, I think a lot of people can assume what that looks like, but I think that would need to be fleshed out a little bit more, for the management having sufficient experience to run a bar, that's a little subjective. And that there's a plan for following IDing patrons, that's a little subjective as well, because, we're not, we don't necessarily know what they're looking, what the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association is looking for. The applicant just provided a plan, whether that, meets what the Neighborhood Association is looking for, that's up for debate. The last one, I think that's general good practices, but that's a little more on a behavioral end. That's not really of the purview of the planning board. I think the only recommended condition on this is the security guard being present from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. I think that's something a little more tangible and concrete. But Martha, feel free to add or correct on that.
Thank you. I agree with Zach, I think the second and possibly the third bullet point could be written into the decision. Definitely the second one, I think, could align with the Roman numeral 7 for the review standards for conditional use permits, in that the standard says that it will provide a necessary and desirable service that is in the interest of the public convenience and will contribute to the general welfare of the surrounding neighborhood or community. So to have good security measures that is also good for the neighborhood, and I think that definitely the second could be okay, possibly the third.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Comments by the board? Okay, the recommendation of the staff is for approval of this. I would entertain a motion for approval with the condition that there is a security guard from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.
So moved.
Moved by Roman Kuchera. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Martin Hall. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the recommendation and the motion with the conditions, please say aye.
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 Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move on to the final item on the agenda, which is 1415 Washington Avenue. And this proposal includes issues concerning affordable housing and Habitat for Humanity. Since I am on the Finance Committee of Habitat for Humanity, it is deemed that I have a conflict of interest. So I will turn this over to our Vice Chair, Martin Hull, and Martin will also be able to close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. So as Al pointed out, the next case is 1415 Washington Avenue, and the proponents have a presentation related to the affordable housing provisions of the code and how they relate to the dormitory, to a dormitory project. Is there anything else, Zach, that we need to?
I was just going to do another recusal conflict of interest check, just
Okay.
just before the presentation moves forward. Okay, and then one thing, just to clarify, I think, on this slide, the request was from the previous meeting, so apologies for that. And also just to clarify, the applicant has changed the number of dwelling units to 231. So minor fixes, but just keeping that in mind going forward through with the presentation. And I will turn over to the applicants. We have them here in person, and you'll have 10 minutes. Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. We sent an updated PowerPoint. Do you have that? The titles did not look the same, and we had other information on it. Yeah, okay. That part looks okay. So, if folks are familiar with the project, I believe you, Brad Glass also prepared a memo. I don't know whether members of the board have seen it.
Yes.
But we got a copy of it today. And there was also a very nice article in the Business Review. I don't know that people saw it, but it really stated the position very well of both the applicant and we thought essentially it had a good discussion. This shows the existing building, Crestwood Suites, 95 units to be demolished. Why don't you go to the next one? I think a lot of people are familiar with the front end of this proposal. This is the site plan, which has stayed the same since we submitted an updated plan in, I think, July. So this has been a consistent plan. And this shows the various level. That's the parking level below. It has a very large bike room in it. It has parking spaces, and it also has a dog washing station. So if you want to wash your dog in the garage, it's all set. Next. I don't know why this is this order. We already reviewed the demolition permit review. We had it before, and again, we continue to have the same demolition goals to recycle 38% of the demolition debris. Next. There's the existing additions. That's the existing site. That's the rest of the suites. And this is the proposed site plan, which was the site plan before, but this shows the courtyard level. This internal to the building is a nice courtyard. It'd be very well landscaped, a good place to hang out, and it's very secure. It's inside the building. You have some parking outside, which allows people to come in and park if they're coming to see somebody in the office or visit someone. And the next. And that's level 1 floor plan again. We can skip that one. And this is a level 2 floor plan, which shows the layout of the units. And if you want to go next, this is the 3rd through 5th floor plans are slightly different. There's more amenity space on the 2nd floor plan. That was, there are a lot of amenities internal to the building. Next. This is the building elevation. One's the end elevation and one is the horizontal elevation, the lateral elevation of the entire building. And these are colored elevations showing how it looks in its entirety. One's the end elevation. You can see the small end elevation. And the other one is the long elevation broken down into 2 pieces. This is the pictures of the existing building and what the proposed building will look like. You can see Crestfield Suites on the left and proposed building on the right. And these are some views from the highway heading west along I-90. You can see Crestfield Suites in the background. This building will be more predominant than this Crestfield Suites, but we think it's an attractive view. And this is heading east. The Crestfield Suites is sort of hidden by the trees. This one rises above the trees, but again, we think it's a very attractive looking building. Okay, now we'll get to some issues. Traffic mitigation, we reviewed this when we did our secret neg deck. These are the issues raised by Bill Trudeau that he wants us to include, and we are okay with all those. As a matter of fact, the applicant has retained Creighton Manning Engineering, the people that prepared the original corridor study and had prepared the proposals before for traffic lights. We're obviously subject to further review, as its conditions say, as determining the exact design, exact location of light, some other elements regarding restrictions to try to prevent students from crossing in odd places. It also talks about working with the SUNY group to have a walking path down the Collins Circle. And as part of this process, all that will be done. We're committed to it. A memorandum of understanding has been submitted that addresses all those issues. Next. This is the last plan, and we're not really committed to it. We just show this is the last plan that Bill Trudeau liked, but when he made his conditions, he said, this is the current plan, but as the plan develops, as further study is done by Creighton Manning, who have been retained to do that study, there may be a change in this location. We show it there because it sort of quantifies the cost of this traffic light. It appears to us, based upon the other items in the memorandum of understanding, there'll be additional costs with the applicant is prepared to undertake based upon the finding of that additional study. Next, this is the affordable housing question, which is a question at the workshop where we heard some comments that we wanted to try to address. First of all, it goes over the definition, which is also a portion of Brad's memo, and he did a much better job. He took all those issues and raised them, talking about the definitions here. And again, it's very hard to consider the dwelling units here because we have 1 bedroom studio, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedroom units, and 4 bedroom units. So, and there are the majority of the units are actually on studio units. So that our goal here is, if we're talking about units, you might think of it as 12 1-bedroom units or studio units. Next, why don't we go to the next one, which I tried to outline what we've done here. So we talk about there's 231 units, 5% is 12. We have 87 available studio units, so we would select 12 studio units. Again, we're talking about what we do in our attempt to comply with the code the way it reads. Now, you realize that all of the discussions of affordability depend upon family income. The family income in this case, these people will all be either have reached adulthood or they're emancipated minors. So the income that you have to count for these people is in fact their own income. A lot of them are unemployed or only marginally employed, maybe summertime or a part-time job on campus. And therefore, our assumption is virtually 100% of these students would qualify for affordable units. So we would have over 500 students living here, of which we would have to select 12 to participate in our affordable housing unit. This would not relate to their family income, would not relate to where they come from. It would strictly be based upon a methodology we would have to choose, and the only thing that we could think of was to hold some sort of lottery. Everybody's name was in a hat, and we picked 12 to be the beneficiaries of this affordable housing grant, which it is. It's essentially they would rent their unit for less than the going rate for the studio unit. So they would get a monthly reduction in their rent for the school year. These people are, some of them don't even list this as their primary residence. Some of them still list, even though they're up here for 9 months a year. They list their primary residences where they come from: Long Island, Albany, Saratoga. Who knows where they live? But this is not their permanent residence. Most will be here in this accommodation for probably 2 years, because freshmen and sophomore can't live here. They have to live on campus. These will be juniors, seniors, and graduate students. So they'll be here for a limited period of time, during which, and I don't know whether or not it would carry over to future years. Maybe 1 year they qualify, the second year they may not qualify, again, if they're not successful in a lottery. But the benefit to these people is passing. We don't think it does much with regard to the true affordable housing problem in the city of Albany, which is finding affordable housing for families living in the city of Albany. We go to the next slide. So we try to figure out the basis for how it would do, how we'd come up with that. We checked for Habitat for Humanity, which said, as a unit is built, Habitat for Humanity has to come up with their own funds for $25,000 to $30,000 to build 1 3 or 4 bedroom townhome. The rest of the money is provided by grants or significant contributions to that. They do not have, so therefore, based upon our goal of providing 150,000, it would come up with 6. How do we say that was reasonable? Because the minimum number of people living in these 6 homes, first of all, they're 3 or 4 bedroom townhomes. The minimum number of people would be 2. So it has a minimum impact on 12 individuals, equivalent to our 12 students. But the impact would probably be much more. because the actual number of individuals living in each of these homes would be 3 to 5. We took a look at Habitat for Humanity's website, and a 2020 impact study shows that there are 7 homes were completed in 2020, which housed 22 individuals, and 5 were under construction, which would house 25 individuals. Therefore, someplace between 3 and 5 individuals living in each of these homes. So we're providing 6, we're providing housing for much more than the 12 students who would benefit from the reduction in rent for their room at the dormitory. So we think that this is a much better permanent, affordable, owner-occupied homes for the city of Albany, which is, to my way of thinking, is the better way of meeting the city's ultimate goal of increasing affordable home ownership opportunities for Albany residents. These will be residents of the city. They will live there. They are arranged so that the people can afford monthly payments for these homes, and the great majority of them have been successful in living in their homes provided for Habitat for Humanity under these conditions. I don't know whether or not either Evan Hodo from Scenic or Andy Brick, the attorney, want to add anything to this presentation, or do we just want to request questions?
I think, Dan, you've done a good job sort of, presenting our alternative to comply with the codes. I do know, or I believe that someone from Habitat for Humanity is on Zoom who also
may want to speak.
May want to speak as well, but I think you very well, addressed our sentiment.
Yeah, Fred Dargist from Habitat said he's here if there's any questions related to Habitat's participation with this, or if there's any questions related to how those funds would be used for Habitat housing.
Okay. Thank you very much. So you're done with your presentation. Any questions from the board?
Yes, thank you. I do have some. So one of my questions is, are you classifying this project as student housing or as a dorm? Because when we did when the presentation first came in front of us, when at the planning meeting, it was classified as a dorm, and dorms are generally regulated through the state and do not have to have these requirements, which is part of my confusion. So I wanted to just confirm that before I go on with my next question.
Yeah, we classified as dormitory because that's how the code classifies it. So I'm afraid if we use student housing, it was inappropriate. This should be called a dormitory. And that's why, and we also thought that it should not apply to dormitories, but that's not clear in the code because it says, based upon a definition as laid out in Brad's memo.
Okay, so, all right, you're going by the USDO. Okay, no problem. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if the USDO, I have to agree with the memo that the USDO does not do a good job in delineating between a dormitory, student housing, affordable housing, what have you. But I think my concern is that I believe that the argument put forth about the students that will be there is a little overbroad and oversimplified. If being with SUNY, I'm assuming that being that the configuration, even though it's closest to SUNY, I would say a lot of the people there would be SUNY students. But they come from different walks of life, different types of different places in which their financial aid is based upon, if they're undergrads, is based upon their parental units income, unless there's some type of reason why it shouldn't be. They're emancipated, so on and so forth. So by saying that everybody would qualify, that's not necessarily true. So I'm kind of concerned about that characterization when everybody's financial status is not something that you will know until they actually apply, and then can have a better idea as to who would be eligible for any affordable housing credits. Generally, because dormitories are regulated by the state of New York, and which would preempt the USDO as far as its definition application, using it in that respect, I believe that they, whatchamacallit, I'm not sure of what the, whatchamacallit, I'm not sure of what they were trying to achieve, and the fact that it's not clear, but I don't think that this qualifies as a dormitory per state. I just think at this moment, there is a way, if you so choose, to track that. To track that information and who comes in. And I'm concerned about there being a obfuscation of the intent of the USDO done by our legislature, to just say, okay, we don't want to deal with this. Let's just bring it over to Habitat, let them deal with it because that's what they do. There's no question in my mind against Habitat's intentions and what they'll do with the money. It's just the application, and it just feels like a way of trying to get around the USDO, because it is burdensome, and those are just my concerns.
Thank you, Ganesa.
Mr. Hull, could I take that one question and?
Sure.
Unfortunately, the code identifies affordable housing based upon the mean income as stated each year by various agencies. Actually, the United States, the HUD has the basis for that. So if people came to us and they said our total income a year is $3,000, we're definitely less than the HUD standard, we qualify for affordable housing and want you to consider it. We can't consider the fact is that they may come from a wealthy family, because the code says we have to base it upon their income, and their income being, because they are either they've already turned to adulthood or they're emancipated minors, their income is their income and not their family income. So I understand what you're saying there. Ideally, when you went through a SUNY project, you get consideration based upon family capability to afford, based upon your participation in the program, and it may actually be a work requirement. But again, we're working under a different set of rules here. This is not SUNY's dormitory rules. This is USDO affordable housing definition. And because affordable housing says we have to use that as a basis, we'd be hard pressed to tell, and I think almost 100% of the residents there would qualify. Now, it could be that somebody who's, because we're also allowed to take staff in too, so there might be a few staff members from some colleges there which wouldn't qualify. But the vast majority of the students, in my mind, would qualify, and it would not be possible for us to differentiate them based upon what their family income. That's not an element at all. So I don't know whether or not Andy wants to get to it.
Yeah, if I could just add, the median household income in the city of Albany is a little over $44,000. And most students, and keep in mind, we won't be housing freshmen and sophomore because they have to be on campus. So we're going to be people who are mostly over 18. The vast majority of full-time students make far less than $44,000. So we anticipate that the vast majority of our tenants would be able to show an income of less than $44,000 because they're full-time students, maybe with a summer job or a part-time job. And therefore, under the USDO standards, they would qualify when, from a practical standpoint, they wouldn't necessarily need that assistance. Because we can't take into consideration that they're only here for 8 months a year, and then they go back home and live in their parents', $750,000, $800,000 home, we can't take that into account. The way the USDO is written, we can only take into account whether or not they make less than $44,000, which we think would be most of all the emancipated students that apply. And so what we did is we first looked to see whether or not we should appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals to argue that it shouldn't apply to a dorm. We didn't choose that route, quite frankly, because my clients said, we don't want to avoid responsibilities. We support student housing. We want to provide something to increase affordable housing opportunities in the city of Albany. How can we go about doing it that will have actual meaningful results rather than just reducing the rent for 12 people that may or may not really need it, when you look at the overall picture of where they're coming from. The other component of this that makes it even more confusing, and I agree with all the different definitions makes it confusing, is the fact that just about everybody that would be coming to live here would be receiving financial aid. And anybody under that $44,000 a year threshold for a median household income would qualify for financial aid that would likely cover their room and board. We wouldn't even be able to take that into account. All we'd have to look at is the median household income. So we think, in effect, if we adhere strictly to what's required of the code, we're going to end up reducing rent to 12 people who may or may not deserve it. So we think we came up with an alternative that actually promotes and achieves some real benefits and goals of affordable housing, which my understanding of it is, the apex of affordable housing is permanent affordable housing, single family homes. And that's where we focused our attention, and that's where the proposal came from.
Okay.
No, I'll let it stand. I still have a lot of concerns, but I'll let it stand. I just don't want to spend this evening going back and forth. I think we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Has legal counsel opined on this at all?
I have not, and at this time, I don't think it's my purview to opine on it. But if I stand corrected, I will issue probably something in writing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I personally would like, Martha, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb. I personally would like to see, and I think I said this during our planning meeting, if this has been done in another jurisdiction. My concerns are that, if we start this precedent now, that this can be something that can expand in other affordable housing concerns that may not deal with student housing, that may deal with everyday housing for people. So I just want to make sure that, whatever we decide, there's a legal basis to do so. And if there isn't, that should be stated as well. I understand the arguments, but I would like to know if there's a legal basis for what they're proposing.
If I may briefly, based upon your request at the last meeting, I did research inclusionary zoning provisions in zoning codes throughout New York State. I located 16 jurisdictions, one of which is the city of New York, which is a little different. But I did locate 15 other jurisdictions throughout the state. And the difficulty is, to confuse the matter further, is none of those jurisdictions have a definition in their zoning code of a private dormitory. So while there are other jurisdictions that require the affordable set aside for both multifamily units, the apartment buildings, as well as residential subdivisions, some of them do it by an incentive, some of them make it mandatory, but none of those jurisdictions, unfortunately for us, also include a private dormitory use as a definition. So we're breaking new ground here. The city of Albany was a little ahead of the curve by including the inclusionary zoning. It's a good thing to have, but they also were a little ahead of the curve by including a definition of a dorm. And unfortunately, those two issues that were pretty innovative in the USDO now have somewhat of a conflict and don't mesh together when you apply them together, which I think is what's creating the confusion we all have.
No, I can agree with you on that. How the USDO defines a dormitory is definitely confusing in this matter. Especially this is the first time really applying this piece to the USDO. We've had other type of student housings proposals come in front of us, but they didn't have this specific issue. So that is very helpful to know that there isn't a jurisdiction that you've seen in your research that does a proposal similar to what you're proposing here.
Well, if I could just add as well, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this. Of the 16 jurisdictions I've located, 8 of them allow for alternatives to be proposed. And it's a question of, who approves those alternatives. But half of the jurisdictions I found do allow alternatives from the mandatory set aside.
And in your research, well, one, if you don't, I don't know if you have the list with you or if you can supply it to the board after the meeting, like which jurisdictions have that, and what in your research have you seen as far as applicability? What are the alternatives that were proposed and were they accepted? Do you have that information?
I do have it, and I can provide it. You wouldn't want me to go through it now, but I can put together a memo.
No, not right now.
I can get you a memo.
That sounds great. That sounds very helpful.
So then can we propose tabling this to allow us an opportunity to review the memo?
Yeah, we had no action to be taken on this issue, so.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question? And I look forward to reviewing this subsequent memo from the applicant. But then for Glenessa, I just want to clarify. So of the 2 questions, are you looking for one, whether a dormitory is something separate from a dwelling unit, and 2, can an applicant subcontract their affordable housing requirement, whether that applicant is a dormitory or has established dwelling units?
So I'll hit number 2 first because that's the easiest. Number 2, yes, I would want to see whether or not what you're describing can an applicant subcontract their affordable housing requirements to a third party if they're deemed a dorm. And for the first one, no, I'm not looking for a definition of a dormitory.
Our thought here was that this would only apply, because we're strictly applying it to something called the dormitory under the code, would only allow this exceptional step to be taken if for another dormitory, and should not be available generally for thing called multiple housing of any other sort, because this is a very specific problem with the dormitory and how to enforce something like this. And no action be taken today, as Zach indicated, because we still have to wait for Albany County Planning Board action on it, which will take place later in October.
Yeah, and the referral got sent out in the mail yesterday, and the electronic referral was sent out on Monday.
Zach, is there anything else that the planning department would like to add to the discussion, based on Brad's memo perhaps, or anything else?
No, I mean, again, I would just say take a look at Brad's memo from today. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me or Brad prior to the meeting, especially if you need any type of information that either, our department, the law department, or the applicant provides, so that, you have that well in advance of the meeting, and those questions can be resolved and answered.
Okay. So Glennie says, are you satisfied with the time you'll have, since we're not going to be acting on this today, between now and next meeting? As long as we get you get the information that you requested.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering about you asked that we table this issue, and I'm wondering if 1 month will be will be enough time to deal with the issues that we have in front of us.
Definitely.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Any members of the public, Zach?
We do have, sorry, bear with me. We do have a Councilmember Ballerin, and he signed up to speak. So I'm just going to switch over to the timer, just so that can get set up. Bear with me, I just have to change the time. Since he has 6 minutes to speak. And I'm just elevating council member to be a panelist. Councilmember Ballerin, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this issue today. I just want to clear up some statements that were made that are not consistent with, how higher ed works. So to be emancipated, you actually have to go through a very rigid process to be able to delink yourself from your family income before the age of 24. So it's a very lengthy process. Now, it also could include anyone who's gotten married, anyone who's had a child, and anyone that has finished undergraduate and is now a graduate student. But before that, anyone before 24 is still linked unless they've gone through the lengthy process or had that those other circumstances occur. So I just want to make that very, very clear. So if the applicant wanted to genuinely try to provide affordable housing for students, they have mechanisms to actually do that and address a real issue that higher ed is dealing with. Housing insecurity for students is a real issue. And this entity has the opportunity to actually legitimately address it. But I also want to talk about the numbers because that's really why I'm here. The applicant mentioned 12 units. Well, I have a real problem with that because, they only talk about the studio units when they have 557 rooms and they have 87 of those are studios. Over 144 of those are more than studios, meaning they're being disgenuine saying that they would just provide studio space. If you want to actually do this correctly, because this is considered a dormitory because they get the privilege and the right to be able to rent it out rooms by rooms. So they are looking at 557 rooms. They are going to rent out those rooms for between $900 and $1,200. Depending if they're in a 4-bedroom or a studio. So, and if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong with my numbers because that's what's being rented out across the street right now. So that's a monthly income of $529,000, an annual income of $6.3 million. If you look at the lifespan, and I'm going by 27 years of this building, it's going to provide over $171 million to the applicant. So when I hear $150,000 to not address this policy, I have a real concern with that. If we want to just talk about numbers, we can take 5% of the expected revenue for the 27 years of life expectancy of this building, which would be $8.5 million. Or we can take 1 year's revenue, which would be $6.3 million. Or we can ask for a minimum of 5% of what it's going to cost to build this project, which is roughly explained as 80 million, and 5% of 80 million would be $4 million to go to actually address affordable housing and to go to agencies that are doing that work. But $150,000, that just is beneath the actual 5% of what the company is going to be profiting from, but it's a slap in the face of what the policy is supposed to be doing. The policy is supposed to be inclusionary housing, to allow housing for individuals who can't afford to live in many of these high-rise and many of these higher-end buildings. You know, if the applicant were to say, forgive me, my dog is joining us. If the applicant were to say, we're going to set aside 28 rooms, because that's what it should be. Don't let them fool you. 12 units is not how they're renting this. The reason you get the right to rent this out room by room, and everybody else in the city of Albany has to rent it out as a whole unit, is because you get that dormitory status, which means your rentals are 557, not 231. So it should be 28 rooms that are the number that should be provided. And if the applicant wanted to provide those rooms, they can easily work with higher ed institutions around the capital district. And I'm sure many of these institutions have students that are in difficult financial situations that they can help recommend for these rooms. If they don't want to follow that process, fine. But then give us a fair number. Give us a fair number for it. Don't give us a $150,000. That's not even 1 month's rent roll. 1 month's rent roll is $529,000. So I'm asking this board, you believe, and you constantly remind us about the USDO and what's in the document. Well, I'm asking you to hold these applicants accountable to what's in that document, and don't allow this 150 to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Ballerin. Any reply to the comments?
Briefly, if I may, Mr. Chairman, don't necessarily agree with the analysis or the numbers. Don't need to debate it. I think the analysis is a little bit wrong. We don't have the benefit of being classified as a dorm. It's the USDO that's classified us as a dormitory. And the affordable housing policy clearly relates to dwelling units. And the USDO makes very clear that we do not have dwelling units. We have living units. So we are following the definitions as they exist. Granted, there is some confusing about the definitions. Don't necessarily agree with the numeric analysis either. But I guess the larger question would be, if you agree with the premise that an alternative may be suitable in this location, then the discussion about numbers is a different discussion. But you have to start with the initial analysis on whether or not an alternative like the one we proposed is suitable based upon the current status of the USDO and our project. But I do appreciate the comments, and I thank them for participating. But I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everyone who commented on this. We've got a lot to think about, I think. Any last comments from the board? Okay, so in that case, I think we're done with this topic. Correct, Zach? That was nothing more that you had to add?
I just had another business item, but if there's anything else, feel free to chime in.
Sorry, can I chime in? Although it's giving myself more homework, it's Martha, which I'm happy to do. But for the board members, Glenessa in particular, so like at the conclusion of the memo, if either way, so if there's a recommendation that, okay, I think this would apply, or like this definitely does apply and subcontracting could be allowed based on other examples of it being done or case law interpretation, would you want me to include a third part of what the appropriate amount would be in dollars? Did that make sense?
I understood the question.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Chris, I'm not sure. Is Chris speaking?
Could you repeat the question?
And I'm sort of just, it came to my mind. So just if there's a finding that, okay, the affordable housing requirement applies, and it is possible for an applicant to subcontract their affordable housing requirement, what is the appropriate dollar amount in this context? Like, would you want that to come from Corp Council or?
I'd like for it to come from some credible source, yes. If council is the one that needs to do the fiscal, then fine. But I'd love to see a fiscal attached to it.
Makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. There we go. I think we are done with that. You had another topic, Zach?
Yeah, just another business item for next month. Al just let me know that he's not going to be at the October, I believe it's 26th meeting. So I just wanted to do a quick quorum check ahead of time, just to make sure, if that date doesn't work for other members of the board, that we are able to switch that ahead of time. Same goes for the workshop too, if we need to make any adjustments on that.
Okay, and what was the new proposed date?
There was no new proposed date. I mean, there would still be 4 board members for the 26th, but if there was any other conflicts for any other members, it might just make sense to reschedule now. So that was the only thing.
I see what you mean. Yeah, no, there's no conflict for me.
No conflict for me either.
I'm going on that date at this time.
And no conflict as far as I know right now.
Right. Perfect. Okay, I think that's it on my end.
Okay, very good. Does that mean then it's time for a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Seconded? Yeah. Okay, also. Ayes have it, I would imagine. Thank you all. Have a good evening.